What's up, guys? Welcome to Flex Friday on the channel, where we come at you guys with flex picks for the weekend. We're giving you those deep cuts, those deep streamers to get you going on the week. Week 10, we are finally here, double digits weeks. Andy's with me. Andy, kick us off with your first pick, and also nice to see you, buddy.
All right, good to see you too, my man. Thanks for having me. We're going to start off with old Jameson Williams, Mr. Boom Bust himself. He's either gone for double digits or about 1 point this year in all of his games, coming off a 2-game suspension. And I think he deserves a spot in the lineup against this Houston Texans defense that we see as being pretty solid. They are top 5 versus the running back, top 5 versus the tight end, but have allowed the fifth most yards to wide receivers. So obviously still going to play Monty and Gibbs. I mean, Dan Campbell's still going to try and run the ball down their throat no matter what, but I think he's also going to come up with some little scheme plays to get the fastest guy on the field the ball. I like him bouncing back in this game after the suspension. Hopefully Nico's back too. I know it's kind of trending the opposite way, but this could be a real fun shootout game. But I'm looking for Jameson Williams to be involved and get on that upper side of those double-digit fantasy points.
I mean, yeah, you only have to go back to last week to see multiple receivers performing well against the Texans. Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams both had great games against the Texans. And like you said, they have a good corner. Stingley is really good, but it's probably not going to be covering Jameson too much. And I actually think as good as the Lions have been, they miss Jameson Williams these past couple of games. He adds another element to them. And those players are just, to me, dude, I love playing this kind of player in my flex position when it comes down to it. Like, it's why the love for Rashid Shaheed on this channel is so real. It's like, to get a 25-point bomb from your flex player or have that ability is awesome. And I'm with you, dude. I mean, he wasn't hurt. It's not like he was like doing something crazy. Like,
he was just getting stronger,
you know? Got suspended.
PEDs, baby. You know, he's just getting faster out there.
The JMO thing and just trying to get suspended for make his way around the planet. I mean, he's making up new ways to get suspended every year. But we appreciate you, Jameson Williams, and let's see if we can catch a long one this weekend. Moving into my first player of the week, going to be a wide receiver as well. I'm going Khalil Shakir. I have this written down as I think trending to be a good pick. He had a nice game last week for the Bills. And I feel even better now that Keon Coleman looks to be ruled out with, I think, what they're calling a wrist or a hand injury of some sort. So, I mean, that really is the issue for some of these Buffalo weapons, is that there tend to just be a lot of them. You know, I mean, Amari Cooper, Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, but you're losing one of the weapons. I do think Shakir and Kincaid are kind of the chain movers of the group. So I feel good about throwing Shakir out in this game. You're definitely not scared of the Indianapolis pass defense. That is a defense we target. One of us probably targets the Indy pass defense with one of our players every single Flex Friday, just because we look at it and we're just like, who's playing Indy? Who's playing Jacksonville? Who's playing? Like, these are the defenses you like to target with your flex positions. So I think Khalil Shakir has a nice little floor this weekend as a flex player.
Yeah, he's got a great floor. I mean, he's only gone under 10 PPR points in one game this season. So he's definitely a very safe play. You know, he's kind of Josh Allen's favorite target to just move the ball. He hasn't really boomed or gone explosive, but no Keon Coleman this week against the secondary. There's a chance for that. So I think he's got a solidly high ceiling and just a very, very safe floor. You know, if you're looking to get at least 10 points and you don't want to be killed by the next guy I'm going to talk about, who is Parker Washington. This is the deep dive, the spelunk of the week. He is owned in 5% of leagues. So yeah, this is really, if you need to pick up a guy off of waiver wires, this is the guy I'd be looking at. I don't know if you've seen the Jaguars injury report, but Kirk out for the season, probably no Lawrence this week. Probably no Brian Thomas Jr. Gabe Davis is questionable. All 3 of their running backs have injuries. So, you know, this is like next man up, who might be the last man up for their team, because I feel like I'm going to be going to their open tryouts in a couple weeks if this trend continues. Show them some of our flag football tape from back in the day. But yeah, they get to play the Vikings this week. I don't love Mac Jones throwing the ball to him, but this Vikings defense has been great at stopping the run and just letting teams rack up passing yards through the air. I think I know they're top 5 in pass yards allowed. So I feel like Washington is going to be involved. He had an 85% snap share last week. Over the last 2 weeks, he's had 10 targets, 6 catches, 87 yards. Would be great stat for one game. But for a guy who you're flexing, who has great matchup against the defense, even bigger opportunity this week, he's at least going to get the volume of somebody who should be able to score at least some points in your flex if you are desperate.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost this mixed with the deep stash from last week. Khalif Raymond obviously didn't pay off last week, but no. I think we need to almost have a new segment to the show, like the hungover ad of the week, and that's what this one is. It's I woke up, I didn't realize I had Keon Coleman. I got to go get someone that I'm guaranteed is there, and Parker Washington's that guy. I mean, I've liked him as a stash in dynasty leagues, and it's for a lot of the things you said, right? He's a good short area wide receiver. He gets open. I mean, he kind of does look like a slightly worse version of Christian Kirk to me, to be honest. And he'll probably be utilized in a similar way for the Jaguars. And he has the snap share and he has the matchup where they're probably going to be getting potentially crushed by the Vikings. And Mac Jones is going to have to throw the ball a lot, which isn't a good strategy to win a football game, but a great strategy if you're trying to get some free fantasy points out of your flex position. So moving into my second guy, another wide receiver, we're going to the Munich game. Wake up early this Sunday, 8:30 for me, 6:30 if you're on the West Coast. And I'm going with a player who has probably my favorite touchdown celebration in the league. Xavier Lagette does his little pony action whenever he scores. I mean, his role is growing in this offense since they traded Deontay Johnson. Adam Thielen probably still not going to play. Giants are a fine matchup. They have a good pass rush, but I think for me, Xavier Lagette is the number one wide receiver on this team. And yes, it's the Panthers. It's not the best offense to be the number one weapon for, but that's why he's a flex player instead of a wide receiver 2. Being a wide receiver 1 on your own team does have some perks. You get the red zone touches. You get the targets. You get targeted on third down. And Xavier Lagette's a big-bodied guy who he's a rookie, and I like his chance to just have a decent little game here in what should hopefully be a funky little morning Sunday game. These international games get weird sometimes, and sometimes I could, you see a play break or you see someone slip or you see some weird stuff happen. So I am wheels up on Pony Boy Lagette for the weekend.
Yeah, like you said, big dog, wide receiver 1 now for his team, especially with no target hog Jonathan Mingo there anymore. Going to the Cowboys, he's going to be riding his horse across the Atlantic all the way to Germany, and the Giants have only given up 11 passing touchdowns on the season, which is pretty good. However, 10 of those have been to wide receivers. So they're really good at stopping running backs and tight ends from getting into the end zone, but tied for 5th most in the league with 10 passing touchdowns allowed for wide receivers. With this offense, like you said, I think he's going to be the guy. He's been able to do his little celebration 4 out of the last 6 games. So, yeah, I like him here in this spot, and, he's looking pretty talented too.
So speaking of targeting the Jaguars defense, Andy's up with his next guy. Our boy Jordan Addison going against Jacksonville, our favorite defense to stream players against.
Yeah, we keep talking about how bad this defense is, and it's all still true. It's not changing. So great matchup for Addison. Also, the Jags run the 5th most man coverage in the league, and these Vikings have been pillaging and burning defenses who run man. Darnold has the 3rd most yards per attempt against man, 2nd most touchdowns versus man. The only thing I really worry about here is that Minnesota gets out to a big early lead and it just is the Aaron Jones and Cam Akers show. But still in that first half, there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Addison to rack up a bunch of yards, to find the end zone. I think this team's going to be absolutely cooking against this defense. And, I mean, the Jaguars still are a professional football team, even though their entire offense is hurt and their defense is terrible. like they're gonna be out there trying, and hopefully they can keep it interesting enough where we can still be rooting for Addison early in the fourth quarter. But it's just such a good matchup that you don't want to pass it up, even if you think the game script is going to go off the rails for you.
Yeah, I mean, he could easily get all of his points in the first half and have a great game. Like, that's how bad the Jacksonville defense is, and that's how good the Vikings are usually to start games, that it's very likely that Addison could score and have a monster game. And, even when teams seem to get up to big leads, like, they don't really pull off the gas till like the third, fourth quarter. And so he still has a chance to have a nice game. And he's great one-on-one, just like you said, man. I mean, Addison is – he may not be Justin Jefferson, but he's a very, very good player in the NFL. So on to my last flex player for the week. I'm going Rico Dowdle. I think it's a little sketchy. He obviously is on Cowboys offense. But for me, they're going up against the Eagles. Dowdle looked to basically just take over that backfield last week, basically had his best game of the year. It's not that I think he's going to score 3 touchdowns and be some elite fantasy weapon, but he's going to be on the field. He's going to be on the field in passing downs. He's going to be on the field in catch-up mode. He's probably going to get some cheap dump-offs. If they get in the red zone, he has a chance to score. So to me, it's like I just don't really see a way where, unless you're super stacked, that Dowdle can't sneak his way into your flex position. I would probably play some of the guys we've mentioned before over him, as in Jamo and Shakir. But I think Dowdle's kind of in that conversation. It really just depends on if you're looking for upside or floor. I like Dowdle as a floor play this week for the Cowboys, going up against the Eagles, who honestly, Eagles could beat these guys by 21 points this weekend. It could get ugly, I think, potentially. But catch-up still matters in fantasy football. Trash points count just the same. Rico Dowdle this week against Philadelphia.
No, for sure. And I definitely agree with what you said about the floor play. This is a guy who had 71% of the snap share last week, had, I think, 17 or 18 touches, which I would expect him to get again this week. Eagles have been pretty good against the running back. I think they're 4th DVOA versus running backs receiving, and have only allowed a couple TDs on the ground. So it is a pretty solid unit, but opportunity is king, and there's always a chance, to break off a decent 30, 40-yard run. And if you just need a few points, you need that volume. I think this is a guy who is going to have that.
Yeah, this isn't the you faced Jamar Chase, put Rico Dowdle in your lineup.
Yeah.
That's the Jameson Williams track. If you face Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, go with the Jameson Williams track. If you're looking for a little safety, I like Rico Dowdle this week. So before we get into the streamers for week 10, going to do a quick recap on last week and how we're doing on the season. Our week 9 picks, Andy had Christian Watson, Cedric Tillman, Khalif Raymond, Bo Nix, and TJ Hawkinson. Andy currently sitting at 21 for 37 this year. Over on my side, I had Chase Brown, Cortland Sutton, Josh Downs, Sam Darnold, Taysom Hill. I'm sitting at 31 for 38. Hit pause if you want to look at this more. I have the percentages, our hit rates, our picks for last week. But moving on into the streamers for this week, Andy's going with old man Rodgers playing the Cardinals in what's potentially the first of many must-win games for the Jets if they want any chance this season to make the playoffs.
It seems like the rest of their schedule is pretty much must-win games if they want to make it there. And, hey, Rodgers has run the table before, given his old relaxed speech. I don't know if he still got the same juice that he had when he was in his early 30s compared to his early 40s. But the Jets are coming off a long rest, which I like after playing that Halloween game. And this Cardinals team's defense has been pretty solid, but they have allowed, or at least more solid than we thought and they were earlier in the season. But they've still been allowing the 6th most passing yards to opposing quarterbacks. This is just another week where he's rebuilding that chemistry with Devontae Adams. Garrett Wilson looked phenomenal. And that second half of last week, Rodgers was lights out. 3 touchdowns, just slinging the ball all over the place. If we see a little bit more of that vintage side of him, this offense has all the weapons to be amazing. That was the preseason projection. And then you add Devontae Adams to it. It just hasn't really clicked. But if, this post-hype, Everybody's counting them out now. This is a chance for, if they can get it going, I mean, this could be a dangerous offense moving forward, and this is a great defense to target with that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I do think Arizona is a good team. And for me, sometimes just two good teams playing, like they can get a little shootouty, or you have to keep up and keep pace. So like there is this incentive to continue scoring because you have to win. You can't back down. You don't slow down. And every possession matters for the entire game, where sometimes if you get in these games that can be boat races, if the early game doesn't go your way, you run the ball and you kind of get out of it. So I'm excited for this game this weekend. I think it should be a fun one. Moving into actually, honestly, pretty similar play for me. I'm going Russell Wilson as my streamer. Washington's been a good defense. I mean, you can kind of get some points on them just because they score so much that you're having to kind of keep up with Washington. But for me, this has really less to do with the matchup and more that I just think this is a super big game for the Steelers. Away game, they are underdogs. Steelers play well as road underdogs. And I like kind of just betting on Russell Wilson to keep up with the Commanders and make this a really good game. And, you know, as much as we like to make fun of Russell Wilson and his Subway sandwich commercials and anything you want to say, like he's been pretty good since he came back this season specifically. And he's been throwing the ball well to George Pickens down the field. So I like this mix of upside with a little safety that Russ is bringing as a streamer. And, you know, another thing that I like him specifically as a streamer is he's coming off the bye. So it's a realistic sense that you could pick him up. Like he's in a 1 QB league, you probably weren't rostering Russ through a bye. So you realistically could have easily added him this week to play him.
No, yeah, for sure. He's definitely looked a lot more vintage Seattle Russell Wilson than he has Denver Russell Wilson, which is great news for the Steelers. You know, big Mike Williams coming into town. This will be fun with both him and Pickens on the outside. But, you know, it might also open up some of the intermediate stuff. And the Commanders, 25th against intermediate passing, 24th to short passing, have been decent against the deep ball, but Russ is also phenomenal against the deep ball. Got a little golden retriever hurricane going on over here, snorting in the background. You know, the Took. Good boy. But the Commanders added Marshawn Lattimore, but he's not playing this week, so you don't have to worry about getting a brand new shiny corner for this defense. So, yeah, the Commanders they played better than we thought at the beginning of the season, but they're still not an elite defense in this league.
So moving on to our tight ends, Andy's going with another rookie v. rookie matchup with the QBs, but going with Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots. We've picked him before. He has some good games, but what about this week do you like for Henry, Andy?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's the tight end 9 on the year, and on Sleeper, he's only rostered in 50% of leagues. He's averaged 8 targets per game over the last 3 weeks. And, you know, middle of the road matchup versus the Bears. They're not amazing against the tight end, but they're not a really good matchup against the tight end. But what I love about Henry is he's involved in 85% of the team's snaps, and he's also involved in 85% of the team's red zone snaps. He had 4 red zone targets last week, which if you're streaming a tight end, that's what you're praying for. You want those red zone opportunities. You know, these aren't guys usually, if you're streaming, who are going to get, you know, 90 yards on 8 catches down the field. Like you hope they get in the end zone, and this is where they like to use Hunter Henry. So kind of that's what I'm hoping for here.
So moving on to my tight end streamer for the week, we're going back to Germany, and this is probably my deepest play of the week, but I'm going Theo Johnson, tight end for the Giants. This is a guy I like in Dynasty. I spoke about him a couple weeks ago on the channel. It's just a guy I didn't mind trying to target as a bottom end of the roster player, but he kind of has taken over as the starting tight end for the Giants, taken that job from Bellinger this year. Now, being the starting tight end for the Giants is not a glamorous job. It doesn't come with tons of points or tons of upside, but Theo Johnson had a couple big plays 2 weeks ago. He had a nice game last week, 50 yards and a touchdown, and he's going up against one of the best tight end matchups you could ask for and one of the best passing game matchups you could ask for in the Carolina Panthers. So if you're feeling desperate and you got to throw a tight end straight from the waiver wire into your lineup, I like the upside of Theo Johnson. Also, him just being a rookie, this tends to be the part of the seasons where sometimes a rookie can kind of catch fire and stay in your lineup. Now, little less likely with tight ends and someone who's a little lower drafted like Theo Johnson compared to a rookie first-round wide receiver or something. But it still stands true, right? I mean, I think if you're getting desperate and you're looking for an athletic player with some upside, I like Theo Johnson this week to maybe have a big game against potentially the NFL's worst team.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting close to 85, 90% of the snaps on offense, and the Panthers have allowed 7 touchdowns to the tight end, which is most in the league. So one of the best matchups for the position. So I'm with you.
So thank you guys for joining the channel today for Flex Friday, Week 10. We appreciate you guys coming back every week. If you have a second, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, comment any lineup questions below. But Andy, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And we will catch you guys next week for Week 11 Flex Friday.